Thank you, Alam. Thank you, Alam, for that, Professor Alam Ahmed, for this very gracious introduction. It is so good to see many of you whom I would have met in person previously, and some of you, of course, I'm meeting for the first time via this medium. It was such a joy as well to listen to Professor Farida, who I've known for a while now, and the extent to which 15 years on or more, we are at this. At this because at the root of the discussion over the past 3 days is the issue of inequality. And so with that being said, let me thank you, Professor Ahmed, and colleagues for hosting such a significant, apt, important conference. COVID-19 has disrupted life as we knew it prior to 2020 in the main, but we must of necessity view this disruption with Schumpeterian eyes and ascertain what opportunities have been created because of COVID-19. Within the context of today's conference, yet again, global leaders, policymakers, academics, consultants convene to determine the role that universities can play in one, normalizing SDGs, two, integrating SDGs into existing or evolving policies, three, mainstreaming SDGs such that they are not seen or viewed as some abstract, unreachable set of goals, but rather they become a key staple in the exercise of policy making. Ensuring the SDGs undergird the practices of universities. For example, by infusing renewable energy, smart technologies in their infrastructure. And in this regard, they will be viewed as leading the charge from the front, leading by example, well beyond motivating universities to embrace the SDGs as a critical topic worthy of being infused into the curriculum. The additional role of advocacy is critical, is essential. The world still expects universities to provide the inspirational and transformational leadership. Hence, universities ought to ramp up their evangelization, their advocacy on SDGs. Regrettably, SDGs are still viewed in many quarters as some abstract, unreachable, utopian set of goals. For example, in the ongoing discussion about vaccine inequity, there has been little to no debate or acknowledgement that vaccine inequity is in fact a function of a systemic problem, systemic inequality, systemic inequity, which is reflected in every facet of life, more recently with respect to vaccines and the distribution of vaccines and access to vaccines. Moreover, while there are 17 SDGs, defined and structured separately, we need to recognize the indivisibility of SDGs. Hence, any discussion of SDGs should revolve around the cross-cutting themes, issues, and hence cross-cutting solutions. It is no coincidence, therefore, that goal number 17 emphasizes partnership. Our ambitions, therefore, should be informed by this inherent nature of the SDGs, which in fact mirrors what obtains in the international political economy. This is particularly evident, for example, by the range of topics covered over the last 3 days. Universities, therefore, in responding to this reality, are being forced to become more nimble, more malleable, more collaborative, both by enhancing interdisciplinary relations and forging more partnerships between and among universities and the private sector, including strengthening relations with civil society organizations. It's for this reason I am so excited about what we have been able to initiate by hosting this conference. In effect, setting in motion the mechanisms and establishing the platform for us to realize in a very meaningful way the synergistic gains to be had when we endeavor to work together for the common good. This is a necessary pretext, a necessary precursor to triggering the paradigmatic and systemic shifts needed to correct the institutionalized and systemic inequities that pervade the international political economy. So whether it be by employing ICTs to improve government's delivery of services and goods, a la e-governance, or embracing ICTs to improve the bottom line of companies and businesses, hence e-commerce, and very significantly positioning countries, institutions, and individuals, entrepreneurs, to capitalize and give new meaning to and encouragement to the spirit of entrepreneurship, but for humankind to experience the gains promised in the SDGs, we must do the following. One, we need more aggressive marketing and advocacy. And by that I mean mainstreaming of the SDGs. Greater effort to correct the notion that the SDGs are of concern to people like us in exclusive spaces like this, and instead have SDGs become part of our everyday parlance, where ordinary people, the global citizenry, understand the SDGs, embrace the language of the SDGs, and appreciate their individual role in realizing or meeting the SDGs. The global citizenry must be able to identify with and appreciate the SDGs, which should then inspire them to do their part in ensuring that the SDGs meet the ambition etched in the fabric of the language of the SDGs, that we can truly experience the spirit in which the SDGs have been enshrined. In so doing, the conversations we've had today over the last 3 days on e-government, digital education, gender, income inequity, impediments to realizing SDGs among youth and women in particular, the significant role of big data and artificial intelligence, the need for strategic planning, the pandemic, inequity and inequality, and interestingly, making sense of the knowledge environment in the emerging context. All of these, to my mind, stem from the fundamental issue of inequality and inequity embedded in our global capitalist system. Curiously, it is the same system and the institutions that are in the main a caricature of the system that are now charged with resolving, reconciling, and curing these systemic asymmetries that breed the inequalities and inequities that pervade every facet of our lives. And that is why accomplishing the 17 SDGs is no easy feat. We are swimming against the tide. But it is laudable that the champions of change, our global community, the United Nations and its affiliate organizations, universities, CSOs, NGOs, INGOs, that we are undertaking what is expressed within the architecture of the SDGs. And we must applaud all who are involved in that endeavor. And we each have a critical role to play. We need 1, strong moral leadership. 2, change agents. 3, a global population that buys into and embraces the SDGs. 4, adequate financing to allow for a meaningful pursuit of the SDGs. 5, we need also champions, visionary champions for SDGs, so that they become a household ambition, which then find expression at the highest levels. But there is much reason for us to be hopeful. Forums such as this one can go a long way in highlighting the significance of the SDGs and provide a platform for the necessary dialogue. The United Nations and sister agencies have exerted much effort and invested significant resources to ensure that the SDGs are a success, or rather meeting the SDGs become a success. Already, notwithstanding the significant challenges to be overcome, there are success stories and gains being made, albeit incremental. The dialogue and action around climate change, regrettably slow, but moving nonetheless. The strides made in the exercise of greening our economies, with countries articulating their ambitions with respect to reducing reliance on fossil fuels, and the uptake of renewable energy, regrettably not at the pace that is necessary to reverse or stem the effects of global warming. But evidently, to the extent that we are discussing this at all, at every level, is instructive. Technology gaps, digital gaps continue to haunt too many societies. And we've heard the stories today. We've seen some of our colleagues experience this firsthand today. Goal number 9 in particular references industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Presumably, this is geared towards not only narrowing the various technology gaps, but also better positioning countries to maximize on or capitalize on the benefits to be had. So I must therefore say that I always find it very curious that the word inequality, the concept of inequality, finds expression in a handful of goals, whereas it is, to my mind, the overarching pervasive issue. And that inequality or inequity give rise to the disparities and the gaps that we are now endeavoring to cure, as articulated within the language of the SDGs. It is no coincidence, therefore, that education is emphasized as the bedrock of the ambition enshrined in the SDGs. Further, this is precisely why this conference has focused almost exclusively on the role of universities. This conference is a clarion call to universities to assume a lead role in championing the value of the SDGs and the need for other agencies in the international system to play their role in advancing the SDGs. Governments, public and private sectors must see themselves as critical players and stakeholders in ensuring that the SDGs do become a success. Of particular note is the need for finance to ensure that the SDG agenda is not starved of resources, but the endeavor is very well resourced so that the intended benefits or the intended beneficiaries of the SDGs can really experience the curative, progressive, and overall benefit to be had. The emerging educational knowledge environment is one that allows for perhaps previously unseen levels of collaboration. It is no wonder we see a plethora of transdisciplinary institutes at many universities around the world, marrying the capacity of actors in industry, academia, government, and civil society. The advent of this level of collaboration is absolutely necessary to facilitate a comprehensive, multifaceted response to the complex global problems that confront the world. I therefore end by lending my own voice to the call for universities and institutions of learning in the main to claim their rightful place at the table and to ramp up efforts to address the problems that beset our world. Today's conference tells me that we are off to a great start. Let me again congratulate all of you for playing your role in championing the response, the effort required to, in effect, level the playing field by addressing the inequality and inequities articulated in the SDGs with their commensurate prescriptions for change. Your effort, to my mind, is a significant propeller for change. I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gale. I think we should draw it for you, although there is a virtual hand, but let's do it real one.
Yes.
So please remember, if we all help and do a little bit, it will make a big difference.